Next up, I did say select board candidates, but I'm going to make one little exception. I did get a request from Stephen Stuntz, who's running for Water District Commissioner. He is actually not in town. He's in Maine visiting a sick friend. So he asked to go exactly at 7 o'clock so he could talk to us and kind of do his other things. So I would ask Sam to bring Stephen on board.
Good evening. I'm sorry I can't be there. We have a very sick friend up here in Mar Harbor, which is where we are now, and I appreciate the extra effort that Sam and Suhana and the rest of you went through to accept me in this kind of manner. A quick one about myself. I was raised in Latin America by my family, who was traveling for the Associated Press at the time. I came back to Boston for colleges, where I went to MIT and to Harvard Business School. And after that, we moved to Acton. So I've been in Acton for 50 years. We have 5 kids. They've gone through the Acton Boxborough school system, and we're delighted with it. My experience is in manufacturing and in nonprofits. In those roles, most of my roles were in the financial area and in operations. I started giving back to the town because we love it here, to the Acton Water District. And my focus at the Acton Water District has been on quality and on conservation. Why am I running again? Because I want to solidify the gains. We have had tremendous change over the last few years, as you will see in discussions. And I will support the staff to continue the Acton Water District to be the recognized as one of the outstanding water districts in the state. I would like to invite you all to come to the special district meeting on April 22nd to vote the budget as we see it. And my apologies for it being vacation week, but it was the only time we could do it in order to keep the operation running smoothly. I'd like to remind you all that we reward low water rates. Low water users with lower rates for them. The hardship cases are different, and they get discounts if the town gives them one. The usage rate is set to cover the necessary expenses. The capital rate covers the bond cost of all the quality improvements we've done recently. I am not a micromanager. I believe that the staff is running it, and you hire the best staff you can, and you use consultants for all the technical questions. So I respectfully request voting for me on April 28th. And I appreciate what you all have done, the rest of you, and have done at the meeting. And thank you for taking me out of order. I'm happy to take questions, just to make sure that I can do things differently than anybody else.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for being here with us virtually. Like I had mentioned earlier, probably you didn't get to hear, I do have a couple of set questions that we ask all candidates. So my first question to you is, if voters reject a budget at the April 22nd meeting, what is your backup plan to ensure that the district can continue operating? What compromises are you prepared to make to prevent that?
Well, one of the things we're doing is requesting you all to come and vote out. One reason we're having the meeting so soon is in case something goes wrong at the next meeting, we still have time for another meeting to approve a budget. We will be listening carefully to what the voters have to say. I think the issue is clear that the discussion wasn't around the expenses of the budget, but around how rates were set. And I think we're thinking about that, and we're making those adjustments as necessary. I can't say what they are yet because we have not made them yet, but we expect to be making them probably in the meeting on the 13th.
Okay.
And as I said, our second option is to call another meeting. We have a 14-day lead time, so we can continue doing this until something happens.
Thanks. My second question to you is, over the past years, the Water District has done an excellent job improving the quality of our drinking water through upgrades to treatment plants. These projects, however, have incurred significant cost. Are there areas where the Water District can be more efficient?
I guess that's where we depend on the staff. The problem we're having is major costs are external to us, which is the power costs for actually pumping and treating all the water. We were successful in being very efficient in terms of by applying early to the state for the PFAS treatment plants, we got construction-free, interest-free construction loans. So in many ways, the efficiencies we have already taken have allowed us to keep the rates lower. I'm sure we do not have any specific plan to try to be more efficient. Between healthcare costs and energy costs, we are kind of in a bind. We have a relatively few number of employees, so that's not a big issue to us.
Thank you, Stephen. Anyone in the audience has a question for Steve? I don't see any hands up, so thank you so much for being here with us. Truly appreciate you joining us from Maine, and we hope your friend feels better soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the effort you all went to, and thank you, Sam, for figuring it all out and running me through your phone, apparently, because the video wasn't working straight up. So thank you all, and good evening, and enjoy the rest of your meeting. Good night.
Thanks. So since I had already told the select board candidates, and I do know a couple of them need to be out of here soon. No, it's okay. So I can get John on next. So we do the water district commissioners first. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. So John Peterson.
Thank you very much. It's great to look out at this crowd and remember the phrase that I'm sure you all have heard, that if you need something done, find a busy person and they'll do it. Because when I look at the members of the Democratic Town Committee and also, of course, the candidates, I see busy people who've done a lot. And of course, that has special meaning for me because I had the pleasure over the last few months of spending a lot of time here at Acton TV with Sahana. Of course, someone must be blamed. Greg will get all of the blame. It was his idea that we should go and do this microburst. Well, I'll take credit for the microburst, but Greg really was responsible for saying we should show people our tax dollars at work. And I think, you know, as I was thinking about the discussion which has already occurred, there's a lot of discussion around the financial challenges that Acton faces. But the reality is, I think for the time I've lived in Acton for more than 40 years, Acton has always faced financial challenges associated with being a residential community. Acton, however, the whole time I've been here has also done very well. And the reason for that, of course, is community. We have a tremendously powerful community. I see it in the candidates here tonight. You can go really to any event in Acton and you can see that sense of community. And in a shameless plug for the Microburst series, you know, if you watch that, I think you'll see the same thing. You'll see people working together. And that, you know, ultimately is the difference between being successful, you know, and having problems that you don't overcome, is working together as a team. And so I think there are reasons, of course, to be concerned about AB Forward and how the community will come together, but Acton has an excellent track record of doing exactly that. So I look forward to the progress that we'll see in the schools, you know, over this next year. To get back just briefly to my background, over a 50-year career in chemistry with a BS from MIT and a PhD from the University of California, Berkeley. I led drug development programs at 7 biotechnology companies, managing global teams and multi-million-dollar budgets. I've also represented you for 7 years on the Acton-Boxborough School Committee, including 2 as chair, and delivered 5 budget presentations to town meeting. And the moderator only occasionally had to say, you know, please include me in the discussion. And for each of the 3 years that I've served on the Acton Water District Finance Committee, I authored and delivered the opening financial presentations at the annual meeting. And I think that's, you know, where I want to pivot to, you know, what really, you know, is causing me to want to be a commissioner on the Water District, and what do I think needs to change? Because obviously, if you thought everything was perfect, then you should always vote for the incumbent and life would just go on. And the Water District, as Mr. Stun said, has seen tremendous change. The introduction of the new treatment facilities, you know, is a big change for the district. the budget has grown dramatically over the course of the water district. So there's been big change. But there are things that haven't changed. What hasn't changed? In 1986, Article 4, the budget article, read exactly as it did on March 18th. We're going to raise and appropriate various sums. There was no explanation in the warrant in 1986, and there was no explanation in the warrant in 2026. And that's really unfortunate because I wasn't the first one to say the warrant can do a better job of bringing people into the meeting and helping them to understand what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And when I asked that question as a new Finance Committee member on the Water District, I was told, well, we've always done it that way. And I'm sure people have heard that answer to questions. I have never found that to be a satisfying answer to any question. It could be that the status quo is fine, and there's a reason why the status quo is fine, but we've always done it that way is always the wrong answer. And that's the situation with the warrant, but I think that reflects, some other things that were true about the meeting. When I first, said, I'd like to do an opening presentation, I did that in part because the year before, there was a presentation at the annual meeting, but not by a Finance Committee member, not by a commissioner. The presentation was given by Kim Castens, who had done a tremendous amount of work and continues to do a lot of work in the context of Green Acton in assembling, a picture of what is the debt of the district going to look like. And I thought to myself, this is crazy. How can it be that we have somebody from the public going through this and we don't have the Finance Committee or the commissioners standing up to try and help explain what's going on and prepare people to have a discussion of the warrant articles. So that's why I started to do the presentation, and I've done it for the last 3 years. But sadly, I would have loved if the commissioners had said, we want to get up there. There are things we'd like to tell the community. We'd like to tell our voters about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And they just haven't been interested in doing that. And I think that that's wrong. It's part actually of a larger issue associated with the water district. The water district is its own governmental entity. And among the many things that I didn't know about Acton was it used to be, and not that long ago, 20 or 25 years ago, that the water district had its own election. It wasn't even part of the town election, if you can imagine that kind of circumstance. And the water district is integral to the community. People talk a lot about the schools being an essential element of the community. I think if people thought about it, they say, oh yeah, and water is also an essential element of the community, but it lives, as a separate governmental entity. So because that is the structure, it is incumbent, I think, on the commissioners, and the management and the Finance Committee, everybody who's involved in the water district, to reach out, to be part of other aspects of the town that touch on our water supply. So that would include, of course, the Board of Health, the sewer system, stormwater. And, I think if you look at the situation over time, there was a Water Land Management Committee, WILMAC, that did do some important work, but that work is old, and that committee has completely sort of collapsed. The need hasn't gone away. The need is still there, but the structural effort to make sure that the water district is connected to all of the important aspects in town that impact water, that's just not being satisfied. So I'd like to be a water commissioner so I can help make those things happen, to better connect the water district to everything else going on in town, and to improve the communications of the water district. So, the one thing that was satisfying about that meeting on the 18th is that we had pretty much a record turnout. I mean, there was, I think, more people when there was the big debt, discussion in 2023. But other than that, it was much better to look out and see almost 50 people there as opposed to the 10 people that showed up the year before. So I hope that we can continue to have that level of community engagement as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. So again, the same two questions that I asked Stephen. The first one, if voters reject a budget at the April 22nd meeting, what is your backup plan to ensure that the district can continue operating? What compromises are you prepared to make to prevent that?
I think everybody involved in the water district would never let us get to June 30th without a budget. That was never going to happen. I think the only question was, how can we get to a better budget before June 30th. So for anybody who hasn't followed all the ins and outs, the commissioners are going to meet on Monday night, the 13th. It's the Zoom meeting, so if you want to zoom in and see what's going on. And it's that meeting that will determine what the budget is that's actually going to come to the special meeting to look at the new version of Article 4. So that's when it'll be determined. But I can tell you that from the tenor of the discussion where the special meeting was set, that just as Mr. Stunt said, there is, an understanding that there were some things that could be done a little bit better, and there will be adjustments to the budget. So the one thing I'm sure is that you won't see exactly the same budget at the special meeting that you saw last time.
Thank you. The second question, over the past years, the Water District has done an excellent job improving the quality of our drinking water through upgrades to treatment plants. These projects, however, have incurred significant costs. Are there areas where the Water District can be more efficient?
I think there are two areas where the Water District has the potential to be more financially responsible. One area is in the management of reserves. I think, again, people who were at the meeting on the 18th understood that there's a very high level of free cash, and that free cash has not yet been certified. It's between $1.8 and $2.4 million. In addition to that, there are other reserves in the district. And I think, some people are familiar with this envelope approach of, I'm going to put a little bit of money here for clothing, I'm going to have some money here for groceries, I'm going to have money here for rent. And the Water District, like the town, has a few of those little envelopes. And I think that's not being handled in a way that's transparent to the voters. So, for example, there's an article in which we appropriate $500,000 for water mains, and that goes into a water main fund. But in the context of looking at the total reserves of the district, they're not presented as, here's the total reserves. This is everything we have to work with. This is how we could respond to different kinds of financial challenges. So I think that can be better integrated to deal with it. On the operational side, it's one of those tricky parts of governance. What's the role of the board? What's the role of management? I think that there is a role for the board to play relative to the PFAS media replacement. So I was just at the New England Water Association meeting, the spring meeting out in Worcester, and people are now starting to have enough experience with granulated carbon to understand what the life cycle might look like. That doesn't mean we've got a number, but it means that we have a range. So that means from a budgeting perspective, you can put a range down on paper and see what that looks like and start to understand how it could be managed. That relates to another very important question that, people love this, PFAS non-detect. It's like, but non-detect isn't zero. It's not going to be zero. And for people who watch the microburst, you've heard me give this speech. It's like risk never goes to zero. It's only a question of what risk do you want to take, and did it balance, with the other, values that you have. And so I think when you look at how the plant should operate to keep PFAS at a safe level, yet not do so in a way that's uneconomical, there are opportunities to minimize our operating expenses.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Linda? Microphone with Stella.
Hi, John. And I was at the meeting. That was my first water district meeting, so they must be doing something good about publicity because I heard about it. I just want to clarify a couple of things. One is, if they were, they seem to be doing pretty good with publicity, what would you do to increase that? And part two would be, it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the commissioners set the rates and you proposed an amendment that would change that or change the rates. I'm not clear about that. So could you clarify that? That would be really helpful. Thank you.
So those are both excellent points. I think every organization in town, it doesn't matter what you are, the select board, we've heard about, issues in recruiting volunteers. It's just every time that you're out there, you sort of just need to be shamelessly promoting whatever Acton 250 or thing that, is floating your boat. And, I'm obviously thrilled that the Acton Exchange has provided a lot of coverage for the Water District. I think that really helped in terms of just increasing awareness. It's still easy, of course, to go around town and, encounter people. It's like, the water district? It's not part of the town. How could that even be? So there's plenty of room to push harder on that. With respect to, I think what I would do, if you look at the website right now, the website it has a lot of information. So if the question is, can you get information about X on the website? The answer is almost always yes. If the question is the website inviting people to try and explore things? The answer is no. There's a lot of sort of historical stuff. It's not organized in sort of a thematic way. I told my kids from the time they're little, here's the deal. You're never going to speak too well. You're never going to write too well. It's only a question of how can you try and communicate more clearly. So I think, the good news is we are not the only water district in the Commonwealth. And so you can look at other sites to see, well, how do they try and educate people about PFAS? Because obviously a lot of people are going to go and they're going to say, well, what can I find out about PFAS? And does the website provide an entry that's sort of welcoming with respect to, both the toxicology questions and sort of the financial questions? And I think, for this question about water rates and the annual budget and how does that work, I believe that certain kinds of things, really it's good to codify them and have a process that you then can follow year after year. So it's a lot of work in year one, and it's pretty easy in year two and the subsequent years. So the issue about rate setting and the way the budget works, the commissioners have, the historical practice has been they change rates when they need to. There is no formal rate setting process built into the budget. And I think that's really what led to the not ideally productive discussion that we had this year between the Finance Committee and the commissioners, and then ultimately at the annual meeting. So what I think should be put in place for the future is a budgeting process that includes the act of rate setting by the commissioners. Now, at the end of all of that, it's still going to be true that by law, the annual meeting has no ability to set rates. We can't do that at the annual meeting. And that's why the amendment was ruled, as not within the scope of the article. And that's why the discussion was really sort of complicated, because the thing that was an issue couldn't easily be discussed. And there was, another complexity that probably I can't explain well here about how the PFAS articles actually impacted Article 4. But you couldn't really talk about Article 17 until Article 17 came up, although its impact was already being felt in what was presented in Article 4. So I think that there are other issues around the structure of the warrant and the structure of the budget that can lead to a better process in the future.
Thank you, John. Any other questions? I don't see anything else. Nobody else. So thank you. Thank you very much.
And I want to see those views go up for the microburst.
Oh gosh, you had to plug that in. Thank you to our water district commissioners. So